Hello everyone, my name is Juan, I am just one reader, and today I finally have my most anticipated, at least it is for me, video of the year, and it is my 15 favorite books of 2015. So these are going to be just the 15 books that were for me absolutely impeccably phenomenal and that for some reason left a great impression on me. Very recently, I did a video on honorable mentions, which, those were the books that were very close to making it into that list. So you can go and check that one out first in case you haven't. And also, before I get started with the list, I forgot to mention an honorable mention, and that was A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. And basically, this book was just incredibly important to me, not so much because of the book itself, but for what the book has done for me after I've read it. Basically, I'm a teacher and I've used A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness to teach my students, and I've actually taught an entire class around A Monster Calls, and it really has inspired my students, my children, and now they are reading on their own. And so just because of that transcendence that this book has had in my life, I decided to give it an honorable mention. Now, I do get quite rambly and very talkative in these videos, so I will split this video into two parts. So this is part one, and I will be talking about the top 15 to number 8. So the second part of the video is going to be number 7 to number 1. So those are going to be like the excellence of books. But needless to say, all of these books that I will be mentioning were absolutely fantastic for some reason or another. They were just the best of the best. 2015, by the way, was by far my best reading year so far ever. I managed to read 95 books according to my Goodreads. That is completely unprecedented for me, so I am just incredibly satisfied and proud and happy. And now I am finally ready to share my 15 favorite books of the year with you. Coming in at number 15 is The Elephant Vanishes, a collection of short stories by Haruki Murakami. These are just filled with magical realism. The writing style is just so captivating, and even though some of the stories may seem pointless in some ways and you feel like nothing really is going on, you feel compelled to read and get lost in Murakami's writing. His prose is so charming and haunting and beautiful. And my favorite story from here is a story called The Second Bakery Attack. I think there's a short film adaptation of that story. There's another story called The Dancing Dwarf, which I thought was spectacular. There's another story called Barn Burning, which I also think is wonderful. And I just loved this collection overall. I thought it was brilliant. Also, there's a story called Sleep, which is more like a novella. It made me open my eyes and realize just how much I really do like short stories and how I want to keep reading short story collections in the future, as well as Murakami. Coming in at number 14 is Forbidden by Tabitha Zuzuma, and this is a book that I never expected to be in this list just because it's YA and its premise, or it doesn't feel like a book that I would normally put in this list. But oh my god, this book is hands down the best YA book I've ever read, I think, apart from like John Green and stuff like that. But this is just so poignant, so painful, and so beautifully written. Tabitha Suzuma's writing style is out of this world. It is certainly the best writing style I have ever come across in a YA novel. It was a book about a difficult subject matter, and it was dealt with very well, I believe. It was not unbelievable. It was just so beautifully written. I cannot recommend it enough. It was controversial. It was extremely well written, and I think it says a lot about human connection. And I really applaud Tabitha Suzuma for being fearless. I feel like She was just not afraid at all of doing what she needed to do with his characters. It was a very hard book, but I absolutely adored it. Coming in at number 13 is another collection of short stories, and it is The Rental Heart and Other Fairy Tales by Kirsty Logan. Kirsty Logan writes very short stories, and she has the most beautiful, the most elegant, elaborate, impeccable writing style. Honestly, I just read some sentences and some fragments, and I was breathless, and it was just wonderful to read an author that really can do so much with language. These stories are filled also with magical realism. They are fairy tale-esque, or actual fairy tales that she is creating or retelling. And this book was just very greedy and very raw. Some of these stories were, they had to do with difficult or controversial or hard subject matters, but she just went there. She was not afraid, and it was a beautiful collection. I absolutely adored it. Then coming in at number 12 is It Just Me by Miranda Hart. This is a non-fiction book by Miranda Hart, who is a British comedian, and this book was just fabulous. It is a great example of the right book at the right moment. I read it back in January at the beginning of the year, and I remember I was just in the best mood because of this book. It was just hilarious. It had some very careful observations about, our human awkwardness, and she's just a very awkward person. You can really connect to her. She is very honest about everything that's happened to her, so you can really relate to her. This book is just hilarious. It's fresh. It was a book also that was constantly breaking the fourth wall. So there was a dialogue with the reader and with Miranda herself, and also Miranda was talking to herself and to her 15-year-old self or something. So it was like a very very well written book in terms of the constant inner dialogue that she had with herself, and it's a book that you can get lost in and read in one sitting or two sittings. It was absolutely hysterically funny, and I just loved reading this. It was just a wonderful experience. Coming in at number 11 is a book that could not be more different than Is It Just Me, and it is the Gothic classic Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. This book was just flawless in terms of prose and writing style. It was just perfect. The writing style is just absolutely wonderful. It was enchanting. It was one of the most atmospheric books that I read this year, and I think one of the most atmospheric books I've read, period. It was, like I said, a gothic, sort of ghost-like, almost like a suspense novel. It was very quiet and subtle and elegant, and it didn't give a lot away, but it was just, it kept me in great tension throughout the entire book. I will say, though, that the first 100 or so pages were a little bit dry and a little bit difficult to get into, but once the story really gets going, you are unable to put it down. So yeah, it was quietly enchanting. It was very dark in a way, very haunting, and what I loved the most about this book was that it's a book called Rebecca, and Rebecca is actually dead. We know from the very beginning of the story that Rebecca is a character who doesn't even appear in the story, and everything in the story revolves around the absence of this character. And also, as a counterpart to Rebecca, we have the main character, whose name we don't even know. She's never called by her name. So it's really interesting to see how Daphne du Maurier plays with names and with presence and with absence, and she manages to create such a vivid, wonderful book. Honestly, there's a reason why people recommend this. It's absolutely brilliant. Then coming in at number 10 is a book that I thoroughly enjoyed, and it's such a weird book. I don't even know if I can explain it very well. It's There But For The by Ali Smith. This is a very weird book that takes a mundane situation of a dinner party in which a man, a guest of the dinner party, goes upstairs, locks himself up in one of the bedrooms of the house, and doesn't leave for months and just stays there, and he causes a quite a disturbance in this English small town. So it goes from a very mundane situation, and Ali Smith uses that as an excuse really to talk about different topics, and she explores different characters and different points of view. But what I really, really loved the most, and what I was really surprised and what I was really surprised by, and I really applaud her for, is her use of language, because she really doesn't use any punctuation marks at all. Pretty much she just plays with the language and with the grammar, with the spelling. So she is just the most creative person in that way. I mean, who can play with language like that? And she creates the most amazing jokes and puns, and it's just wonderful. I honestly don't know what to say about this book, except you really have to read it if you enjoy the English language and how it works and all the things that it can do. If you push it, if you really work your way around it. And I just thought it was impressive. I have never read a book by an author who does that. It's just wonderful. It was also a very immersive reading experience. Oh, I can't read my notes without my glasses. It was a very immersive reading experience. It made me reflect on many different topics, so it also opened up my mind in many ways. And yeah, There But For The by Ali Smith. Coming in at number 9 is another collection of short stories. M is for Magic by Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman is such an amazing author that I've grown fonder and fonder and fonder of. He does exactly what I like. His stories are kind of magical realism or just plain fantasy or sci-fi, stuff like that. Each story in this collection, this is a short story collection. I mean, it's very short. It contains just like a 10 or 11 short stories, but pretty much all of them were phenomenal. There's The Case of the 4 and 20 Blackbirds, which is great. Trollbridge, which was my favorite. October in the Chair, it was amazing. The Prize, How to Talk to Girls at Parties. Just every single story here I think is very memorable, and it is for like a middle grade or YA audience, but I just believe that Neil Gaiman has such a distinctive voice and such an amazing writing style that he is just it doesn't really matter what your age is, you can always enjoy him, and his books are always going to be important. So I don't really have a lot to say about this, except it was absolutely fabulous. It captivated me. I was completely immersed. It was so funny. These stories make you laugh, make you cry, make you think, make you be excited and engage and care about the characters, and he uses the most incredible, apparently stupid situations, like how to talk to girls at parties, and she uses them to create something completely unexpected. So definitely check this out if you enjoy short story collections. And coming in at number 8, and this is the last book that I will be talking about in this video, is probably one of the best thrillers or mystery novels I have read in my entire life, and it's And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. This is my first Agatha Christie novel, because I had previously read a play by her, but this is the first full-length novel that I've read by her, and Jesus Christ, I cannot wait to read more from her. It was just the most engrossing book ever. It was, if I could give it like an award of the most fun, entertaining experience, I would. Out of all these books, I think this was the most enjoyable in terms of, I couldn't stop reading. It was just incredible. It was, like I said, the most fun ever, the most engaging. It kept me guessing constantly. I was attracted and connected to the characters. They were just so funny and so British. it was so fast-paced, and what I really love about books is dialogues. I think that dialogues is the opportunity that the authors have to build characters, build situations, create and build a lot of things. And I think this book is pretty much just dialogue, and it was just so riveting and so fast-paced. I could not put it down. That's just the truth. I read it in less than 4 hours or so, and the ending pretty much satisfied me. I couldn't say it was the best ending, but it was the actual process of getting there that really counted, so absolutely adored it.